Tonight, I'm going to talk to you about some of the heresies that are afoot in the world today. Some very serious ones that root right back into the Bible. And of course, there's nothing new under the sun, as Solomon said. And especially when you come to evil, there's nothing new under the sun. Tonight, we're going to talk about the heresies under the heading of Our Lady of Fatima. And this is something that is sweeping the world and has millions of followers. It's incredible how fast such a wild and stupid era could sweep and how many people could be sucked into it. We're going to eventually end up in Revelation 17 and 18, 2 chapters, and my people are smiling. They said he'll never make it through that. And that's why I'm going to talk about Fatima and Garabandal first, because there is so much in Revelation about the culmination of this monster that is even now moving full speed toward the end times. Let's go back for just a minute. In June, this all started June 1st, 1917. Now there have been appearances of apparitions of ladies over the centuries, because all of these apparitions go back to the Babylonian system. They all root back to Semiramis. All of the mythology characters all root back into ancient Babylonian heresy. And you remember, God hates Babylon, decreed its destruction. And right now, the site of old-time Babylon is not even inhabited. God said when she was destroyed the last time that nobody would ever live there again, and they haven't. Even the nomads who keep sheep won't even camp overnight on that place. They say it's haunted. It's full of haunts. There's all kinds of spooks around there. And so they don't even stay overnight, and that they'll graze their sheep in the daytime, but they won't live there. They won't stay there. And God has cursed that whole area because of the filth and the abominations of Babylon. And yet modern day Babylon rolls along full speed, and there will be a restoration of the heresy of Babylon of old. Now, let me just sketch in for you just briefly, and you can verify this. They had the Miracle of Fatima, I think, on the other night on TV. Erp, plop. Too late, get the mop. But and they'll have the Song of Bernadette on and all of this sort of thing about Lourdes. Same garbage, same sickening garbage. But the reason I'm going in on that fiendish fighting army of Fatima is because it's the frightening one. This thing has done what no conqueror has ever been able to do in all the world. It is uniting everybody. You would be frightened if you knew how far flung this thing has gone under the cover. And if you notice this latest pope we've had, the Papa's been going everywhere. And everywhere he goes, he gets off the plane, and he gets off and he smooches the ground. And I used to wonder why he had such an affinity for dirt. But then I read in Time magazine that everywhere he goes to do this, he's claiming that land for the Blessed Virgin. And then I understood. See, the Blue Army is in full swing. She's moving across the land. And let me just sketch in for you where it started. These apparitions have popped out here, there and yonder. There's a current one in Bayside, New York, Veronica. She's the first one that's been somebody besides a kid. I guess she's sort of a simple-minded old lady. And because that's who these things work on, is simple minds. And then they get them under the occult spell and they're gone. All it is witchcraft, pure and simple. The weeping images, the weeping icons, all of these things are nothing new. They did this back in Babylon. All of these things that are being produced by the Blessed Virgin are as old as Babylon. And they're as abominable and hateful to God as they ever were. Now, in June 1st, 1917, the world was involved in a tremendous world war. Woodrow Wilson had just tossed this nation headlong into the bloody conflict. Russia had just had a revolution among its people. and they had thrown the Tsar out, taken over the government, and Lenin had gone in with a bunch of revolutionaries trained in New York and financed by American gold, and they were carried in a SEAL train across Germany, and they were put into Russia and took over the Russian Revolution. They did not do the Russian Revolution. They took the fruits of the revolution that the people had done and turned it into the communist monster. Now, all of these things were going on at the same time, and at this same time, in a very remote part of Portugal, in the north part of Portugal, up in the mountains, in a tiny little village area, a very poor area, a strange phenomena happened. There were 3 little kids playing. One of them was named Lucia. One was, let me see if I can get the names right, Jacinta and Francisco, I believe. Lucia was the oldest. She was 10 years old. And the other, the girl was 9. The boy was 9, and the girl was 7. The other cousin, they were cousins. And they were playing. They were watching sheep up in the hillside. Strangely enough, near a grove of trees. If you know about groves, that's where the demons always cluster the worship places in groves. And this happened to be near a little grove of trees. And suddenly there was an appearance of somebody they said was an angel. He liked to scare the kids to death. Well, he made several appearances and they had been busy saying their rosaries. That's a good way to crank up demons. And so they were, I mean, you know, the demons instituted the rosary, so naturally it's like saying sue pig when you crank them up. The pigs know when to come. So it's feeding time. And so these little kids had been drilled on how to do this. And so the demon came as an angel. He appeared as an angel. He had pink wings, black hair, and he looked like a boy. And he appeared to these kids, and he made this appearance and several others, and instructed them to say the rosary. He told them a bunch of stuff. And the kids, let's see, Lucia could hear him and see him. The other girl could hear him and see him, and Lucia could talk to them. They didn't pay much attention to the other girl. And the little boy, he couldn't hear what they said, he could just see them. Now these 3 kids, on the strength of that, they went back to the village, and it stirred up quite a nest of interest. And the next thing you know, these people were following them out to the place because they'd been given instructions to come out at certain times and say the rosary and go around, circle around the beads several times and say the rosary. And they promised that the Blessed Virgin would pay a visit. On this first visit, by the way, they did see, the first time that the Blessed Virgin came, I believe it was, when she popped in, she came in up over the trees, standing up over the trees, hanging up overhead, swinging in true witchcraft fashion. And she was standing up there, and of course dressed in white with a blue mantle. You've seen all these statues, that's where they got it, from Fatima. And she always appears. She had a beautiful crown on her head. Sound familiar? You've seen the statues, haven't you? Well, they're patterned after what happened at Fatima. And then she came, and she carried this human heart circled in thorns with a sword pierced through it. That also came from ancient Babylon. And it's amazing. As you read this, I got to reading this stuff, and I got angry. I got angrier and angrier and angrier, because every bit of it is witchcraft, every bit of it is demon worship, every bit of it is exactly what the demons require, whether it's in voodoo or whatever. Only this has a nice, lovely veneer and the mantle of Christianity wrapped over it. But it's not Christianity, it's paganism, it's heathenism, it's Babylonian abomination. And you can't dress it up and make it nice. Well, the heart circle and thorns are there. Now on July 13th, she came back with another appearance, and by this time the people were coming out, and word had drifted out across the country and traveled by word of mouth about this. Now nobody took notice to this except the Portuguese newspapers. Everybody else was busy with World War I. and they couldn't be bothered with this. However, there was interest in the Vatican. The Vatican got interested in what was going on. The Muslim world even stirred with interest because this woman was Our Lady of Fatima. And Fatima happens to be the name of Muhammad's daughter. Isn't that strange? And the Mohammedans occupied Portugal and Spain, large portions of them, for many years during the ascendancy of the Mohammedan Islam push. And so the Mohammedans were interested in this woman who claimed to be, was appearing and called Fatima because she's Mohammed's thing. In Russia, there was interest also. And so there were strange stirrings about of peculiar interest in these appearances were coming. And remember, hundreds of people are starting to come out every time these kids go out. And they go out and they kneel on the sharp rocks and everything. And sometimes they'd be just talking and then just fall to their knees. And you'd hear their knee bones crack on this thing. They felt no pain. There was no bruises, nothing. And all kinds of weird and strange things were happening. And these people began to pour out. Now, they couldn't see nor hear, but the kids went into ecstasy. They went, ha, 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 you know. They went off into Gaga land. And so the people were excited and they came out. It just goes to prove that you don't really have to have anything to crank up a crowd. If you just get excited about it and say, hey, guess what? It's here. It's here. Don't you see it? You don't see it? Oh, it's there. And there's a bunch of dummies who will plunk down money at the door to get in to try to see it. They'll be looking, trying to see it. The devil has played on that thing for many, many years. Now, God doesn't do you that way, people. God doesn't pull that kind of shenanigan, only the enemy. So when you find somebody that's cranking up something like that, stay away from it. It's fraud, it's phony, it's fake. Now, they went on, I started to bring some of the prayers, but I was afraid I'd get angry and be very ugly if I read them off verbatim. They're unbelievable, the prayers that this angel, so-called, told him to. And later on he's going to have a twin with him. He's going to be Michael the Archangel. Well, this one's called the Angel of Portugal. And strangely enough, it's no wonder. You know, a curse shall not causeless come. Well, let me tell you something. Back in 1646, the King of Portugal crowned a statue of the Blessed Virgin with crowns and diamonds and everything and declared her to be the Queen of Portugal. Can you imagine? And demanded that everybody bow down and worship the Queen of Portugal. And after that, no monarch in Portugal ever wore a crown. It was always put on the statue. Is it any wonder that Fatima was chosen to be the roosting place of this foul and wicked, evil spirit? Because the king, back in 1646, it makes a difference what your leaders do. He dedicated his throne, his lineage, his country to that foul, evil spirit. And so Fatima was the place chosen for this foul and wicked spirit to appear. This is nothing in the world, all the way through, people, but demon power. Rank, raw demon power. It has all the earmarks of it. I'm just going to touch on some of it. I would advise you to get The Babylon Mystery Religion by Ralph Woodrow. If you want to go in depth, get The Two Babylons by Hislop, an old classic research book, and dig in and find out what's really going on in the world today. Or if you want to, you can pick up our what we call the bedtime story book here. It's Escape from a Cloistered Convent, where a nun who escaped a cloistered convent escaped, and I took her story off of tapes and put it in narrative form. We call it the bedtime story because if you read it every night, a chapter every night, it'll help you to sleep. Maybe. Some people have argued with me about that and said it didn't make them sleep, made them want to read the whole book. But that's a neat one. And by the way, Sister Charlotte, there's a Pentecostal publishing house that has grabbed hold of that thing and is buying them by the hundreds, saying they got back orders on them. They can't keep up with the orders. They're scattering everywhere. Maybe some of these Pentecostal people should go to war with the harlot. Wouldn't that be great? Praise the Lord. All right. She came and she talked about her immaculate heart, and people had offended her immaculate heart. And because her immaculate heart had been offended. Now, you have to understand, when you're talking about her immaculate heart, you're talking about the fact that she was born without sin, just like Jesus. That's what it's talking about, the Immaculate Conception. Well, her immaculate heart, because the Catholic system teaches the heresy that Mary herself was also conceived by the Holy Spirit. No wonder she's the mother of God. She's not the mother of God, not at all, not even almost. She never called herself that. She never referred to herself. And I'm sure she's the most horrified person in heaven about the blasphemy going on in her name down here. But you have to remember that the Mary that is presented in these false systems is not the Mary of the Bible. It's Semiramis. It's Juno. It's Aphrodite. It's Diana of the Ephesians. It's the love goddess. All of this strain runs through all demonology everywhere of a superior mother goddess. And now the New Age movement has the goddess thing. And you ladies need to pick up what the New Age is teaching to women, the lies they're teaching to women. It's in the book room. It'll open your eyes and show you where the problems are. It's breaking up homes, it's destroying families, and it's destroying women right and left. The lies that the New Age women are promoting. It's in the book room. Now, it's all based on this same hellish, demonic philosophy. And the Immaculate Heart of Mary had been offended. And because people were not praying to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, many thousands of souls were going to hell. And Russia would not be converted unless there was dedication to Mary's Immaculate Heart. Does that sound like God? And Mary had to come down and take charge of it because Jesus was upset about it. And so he turned over to Mother Mary and she came to take care of it. Because, of course, she's far more competent than he is, wouldn't you think? Lord, have mercy. You say, that doesn't sound like the Bible. Of course not. It sounds like the devil, and that's where it came from. And Fatima is nothing in the world but a devilish abomination foisted off. But it's not a joke, because there are millions of people following this. I want you to know that that Blue Army thing is financed and directed out of this country up on the East Coast. There's a man who was blind, and he was told when he made a trip over there that if he would be faithful to the Immaculate Heart of Mary or something, that when the miracle comes, he would receive his sight. Well, I'm afraid his sight's going to be open when he busts hell wide open. Now, bust is not a very good grammar, but it's good preaching, because that's exactly what that poor man's going to do. He's as lost as a goose in a windstorm. He's depending on the Immaculate Heart of Mary. He's poured money, thousands and thousands of dollars. He's raised money, and they're promoting this Blue Army of Fatima. And they've changed the name of it lately. I've forgotten what it is. Every criminal needs several aliases, and they've changed the name 2 or 3 times. But anyway, it's basically the Blue Army. And they have millions of adherents. And Lucia is the gal that came out of this. Jacinta and Francisco were involved. Let me go a little further. When the Immaculate Heart appeared, she informed them that if they would build her a chapel there and do rosaries there periodically and go through all these religious motions, that peace would come and that Russia would be converted. Now, Russia is the big mark to be converted. And somehow the Immaculate Heart of Mary is real upset about the Russians. But anyway, that was the big deal. They were supposed to pray for the conversion of Russia, and they're still doing that. Now, there came a time on July 13th when the Immaculate Heart showed up, the Blessed Virgin, and they called her Our Lady of Fatima. They call her Our Lady of Mount Carmel. I don't remember what all. They give her several different titles. They could call her Our Lady, our Chief of the Demons. It'd be the same thing. But at any rate, she comes and she's a beautiful creature. And so she gives them a vision of hell. And of course, only the kids can see it. And they go into hysterics, start screaming bloody murder. And they see and hear twisted, deformed animals and demons and human beings screaming in the flames. And it's such a horrible, horrific thing. It went on and the kids just went absolutely hysterical. And after this, the two younger ones, especially the youngest girl, I think she was 7, she couldn't sleep nights. She had such nightmares. And the boy, they all 3 of these kids were just absolutely petrified with what they saw, the horror of what they saw. And then the Immaculate Heart told them that they must make sacrifices and be willing to suffer so that these poor people wouldn't have to go to hell and could come out of hell. And by the way, all the promises that were made are contrary to Scripture, every one of them. They're going to pray to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and she's going to take them to heaven. She's the way to heaven. I don't believe that's what the Bible says. I know that's not what the Bible says. And on and on. The heresy is embedded in the whole shooting match, all the way through. And at one point, this hell, well, Lucia got real upset about it, the oldest girl, and she said, well, maybe this is of the devil. And it kind of scared her, and she said, I'm not going back anymore. Well, unfortunately, she went and talked it over with her little 7-year-old cousin girl, and she said, oh no, said this couldn't be the devil because Our Lady comes from the clouds, and she comes down, and then she's beautiful, and the devil lives underneath the earth, and he's ugly, and he goes down, and she goes up, and so it couldn't be. And so she thought, yeah, that's right. And so then they went right back into it again. And then they had this session where they had the they came out one time, and there are thousands of people now trooping around from all over Portugal, walking up into those mountains to see these wonders. And there was a great showering of rose petals one time. Big rose petals came showering out of the light that was over the trees, and the petals melted just before they hit the ground, and that's kind of impressive, you know. Now thousands of people saw this. It wasn't just 1 or 2 people. The kids the only ones could see the apparitions, but the other people saw some of the other things. Now, on October 13th, Our Lady of Fatima promised there would be a great miracle of healing performed. Well, boy, that did it. They came by the thousands. The crowd was estimated between 70 and 100,000 people showed up in that tiny little village up in those mountains, jammed into that little out-of-the-way place up on the side of the mountain, outside the village. And it came, the most horrible storm as they were coming in, the most awful rainstorm that Portugal had ever had, hit there, and the rain, everybody was soaking wet. The rains whipped every which way, the winds blew, and they were up to their ankles in mud. It was just a sloggy mud fest. And then, to top it all off, they got out there on the place, and the men of the town had built a sort of a pen to keep them from crowding in on those kids, the 3 kids. The kids were down on their knees with their eyes glazed. They're going into a trance, and so they were seeing the Blessed Virgin. Of course, everybody else was looking. They couldn't see nothing, but they were there. And it's supposed to be a great miracle, and all of a sudden, there was a tremendous ball of light appeared up in the sky, like the sun. And it just, it was like it started off like a giant pinwheel, and rainbow-colored rays flashing everywhere. Now, this is thousands of witnesses, and newspaper people and everybody else saw this. And this huge ball of fire started moving, and it started coming down toward the earth, and it came right straight toward the people. And as it came, the heat was unbelievable. It was just coming out, and people were screaming and falling in the mud and screaming, Our Lady, save us. And they were saying Hail Marys and everything else, scared to death. And that thing came, and it stopped, and then it went wobbling on back up in the air and went away. And suddenly the people realized the ground was dry, and their clothes were all suddenly dry. And of course, everybody was impressed. I was too. I was ready to bite the heads off of nails when I read that. I thought, that stinking devil putting on a show like that, and all those poor dumb people coming in there, getting all full of demons, thinking that it was God, not the Lord. It was the Lord, not the devil, doing all that stuff. Now, how strange. Somebody else doesn't care for this. All right. I'm not through yet. So they said, well, she's Our Lady of the Rosary, build a chapel here to worship and honor her. And they said just as she went away that time that St. Joseph appeared with the child Jesus. Well, it's a good thing Mama was there to take care of things since the kid was along. The kid's not big enough to handle anything. And Our Lady of Sorrows, she's called Our Lady of Mount Carmel. She's got a bunch of titles. And Fatima was her name. That's where she goes. And there's still people making pilgrimages to Fatima. There are a lot of other things involved in Fatima. Oh, and I've got to hurry on. The next big one came in 1961. 1961 through 1965, there were appearances of an apparition in Spain. Now, this one was up in the north of Spain, Portugal, and up in the north part of Spain, not too far away across the border from Portugal. Another appearance came in a little place called Sebastian Garabando. And this appearances here were very similar in a sense because there were 4 girls out playing out in the valley close to a grove with 9 oak trees. Just happened to be. And a bunch of oak trees in the grove, and that's where the Blessed Lady started appearing to them. And they started, first they started off with angels with pink wings, and then they started talking about that Our Lady was coming and this, that, and the other. Now, on June 18th, 1962, we had the big boy. That's when the Blessed Virgin showed up. Our Lady of Garabandal showed up, and she said this will be the Nights of Terror. And they're still called the Nights of Terror. And we don't know all that went on, but it liked to have scared everybody to death. Now remember, Garabandal is a little village with 70 stone buildings. It was an ancient Roman Catholic stronghold. Every day at noon, the church bell rang and everybody stopped what they were doing, came, knelt down in the church and said rosaries for the dead and everything like that. This is the kind of place it was. Now thousands of people journey there to do that every day with them because the Blessed Virgin visited there. And they go out and they've got a big chapel built out on the hillside where the Immaculate Virgin appeared. Now this night of terror, people were so terrorized, it said that everybody in the village ended up in the confessional box. They were all scared to death, afraid they're going to hell. Of course, one way to get people to confess is tell them they're going to go to hell and roast them real good and convince them they'll get to the altar. And that's what the Lady Immaculate did. She informed them that hell was coming and like scared the daylights out of them. Everybody was scared to death. The kids were hysterical. They were screaming bloody murder and scared all the people to death. And there was literal hysteria. Now, at Garabandal, all during these 4 years or so that this went on, there were all kinds of strange things. Far more strange things happened here than Fatima. Now, Fatima had the ball of fire coming, and that makes it the head lead of the thing. But this is a picking up of the same thing. The Blessed Virgin had a beautiful crown of gold with glittering jewels in it. She was wearing white with a blue mantle over her and all, looked like any good nun. And same thing, same demon, only this time it appeared over in Spain. And but when this thing would come, these girls would go into an ecstasy, these 4 kids, and the oldest one of these was 12 years of age, and then they went downhill from there, younger. And these 12 kids, when they went into they'd be kneeling down doing their thing, they would fall all over the place. They would fall off of a ledge, fall 4 feet onto sharp rocks, and their bones would crack and everything else, and nothing hurt them. They would run backwards. They'd run forwards on their tiptoes with their toes scarcely touching the ground, and people running on the ground couldn't keep up with them. They ran over sharp, jagged rocks and never got cut or bruised. They ran backwards as fast as they ran forwards with their head thrown back so far they couldn't see, and they'd run forward that way and then backward, and they'd put their arms out like that and almost fly. Now this was seen by hundreds, thousands of witnesses, and they'd go running back and forth, talking and laughing to the Blessed Virgin. Well, this created quite a sensation too. And also, when they were in this stage, somebody who was an aunt to one of the girls said she bumped into one of the girls and she put her arm around her something, said she was cold and she was rigid. She felt like a chunk of rock. And one of them's uncle or brother tried to pick a little girl up. And she was so heavy, it took about 4 or 5 men trying to pick her up, and they could hardly pick her off the ground. She was so heavy. And all kinds of weird things like that. And so this is the kind of thing that has kicked off Fatima and Garabandal. Of course, you've heard about Lourdes. And you've probably heard about Bayside, New York, where Veronica is holding forth. By the way, Lucia is the only one left at Fatima. The other 2 girls, the girl and the boy, Francisco and Jacinta, the angel appeared, and he brought a chalice, a golden chalice, that was dribbling some kind of red stuff, which Lucia said was blood, the blood of the Lamb. And so he had Lucia, he dipped a wafer in it and put it on Lucia's tongue and gave her communion. He had the other 2 kids drink out of this chalice. And within 3 years, those kids were dead. And these kids died horribly, by the way. The Blessed Virgin told them they were going to die for the sins of the world. They were going to pay for the sins of the world. She demanded reparation for the sins of the world, and that they were going to be victim souls. They were going to give their lives as sacrifice to save these souls, to keep them from going to hell. And these poor kids fasted, prayed, and they ended up like human skeletons, eaten up with fever, disease. Their minds were shot. Their bodies were gone. They were isolated from friends and family and everything else when these kids died. They lived 3 years after their contact with that mess. Now, Lucia is a nun, and she's still alive. And she's the one that had the message. It was supposed to be given out in, I don't know, sometime in the 60s. There was supposed to be a great message. It was given, sealed up to the Vatican, and I guess it didn't fit with what went on, so they didn't release it. It's never been released. Catholics waited for Lucia's message. It never did come out. But at any rate, she's still alive. She's still pushing the worship. And the Blessed Virgin had said that she would stay on earth to promote the worship of the Immaculate Heart, and that Jacinta and Francisco would be taken on to heaven. She'd take them on to heaven. Lucia would go to heaven later. Well, I have my own views about where they went and where they're going. This is the basis of the Blue Army. Up in Bayside, New York, Veronica's getting some real Lulus coming through. I just saw some papers from there. They're getting revelations about everything that's going on practically. And everything they get reinforces the heresies of the Roman Catholic system, which tells you it's straight from the mouth of the demons. It has nothing to do with God whatsoever. So don't be worried about, here in the Chicago area, remember there was a place where they had a statue of Mary that was weeping? Of course, I thought maybe she was weeping because she thought the end time's coming, the end was coming. But really, they used to weep in Babylonian time. That's no big deal. And then even in one of the Orthodox churches, they had an icon, a picture of Mary started weeping. So I guess if they want to go ahead and bawl, it's all right, but don't be impressed by it because it's demonic. Every bit of it is demonic. Let's go quickly to the 17th chapter of Revelation. Just know this, there are millions marching in the army of Fatima. I saw a report one time from the Blue Army some years ago, and I was shocked. They have an airplane. The Blue Army has an airplane, and they haul these statues of Fatima around, and they loan them out to people in different countries and homes, and they carry the Blessed Virgin from home to home, church to church, blessed things, And Lord have mercy, what a mess. They carried this statue over into India. Now, India is Hindu, as you know, largely Hindu. And they showed pictures of the Blessed Virgin being carried on a platform, just like in South America. And there was a crowd of 75,000 Hindus there, and they were all excited about our Blessed Mother. Because you see, the Hindus have a mother goddess also. And it's easy to change your name to Mary. That's all right, as long as you have the central figure, isn't it? And the Muslims are being attracted to it, and a lot of dumb Christians are. Let's go to the 17th chapter of Revelation. There came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, I'll show thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth on many waters. Now you know what a whore is. I don't have to dwell on that. Sitting on many waters. The waters in Scripture is oftentimes a picture of the nations. And she's sitting on the nations, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. That is, they have come into her chambers, and they have made connection with her. And fornication in the sexual sense we know about, but God calls idol worship, and he calls demon worship spiritual adultery, spiritual fornication. And this is what the kings of the earth had done. In other words, they had linked up with the whore, and her false abomination had hooked up, and they had put it into effect in their nations. Is that true today? You bet it is. And they have been, the inhabitants of the earth then have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. To be made drunk with the wine of her fornication, what is it? Idolatry, licentiousness, unbelief, rejection of the deity of Christ, replacing it with the deity of Mary. And that's exactly what's happened. You say, well, they believe that Jesus was the Son of God. Oh, yes. He's off on the side pedestal over there. Mother Mary's in the front. Check it out. Did you ever see this book, The Glories of Mary? It wasn't written by a Protestant. It was written by a Catholic priest. It bears the imprimatur, which means the Pope said it's to be read and believed. And in the Glories of Mary it said, For there is one God and one mediatrix between God and man, the Virgin Mary. You believe that? That's in black and white. It's printed. They don't make any denials of that. And they go on and talk about the Blessed Mother interceding for us, making intercessions for us with groanings that cannot be uttered. Now she's usurping the Holy Spirit's place, for crying out loud. No wonder she's called the whore. She's a wicked, abominable, vicious, unprincipled system rooting in to take away the glory of Jesus Christ. And he says, the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. In other words, what do drunk people do? They're under the influence. Are the nations of the earth under the influence of this idolatry? If you don't think they are, look at the observances of Lent. Now, the only Lent we have around our house is in the dryer, and we clean it out every so often. But look how many people have to celebrate Lent, and they drape their churches in black, and they drape them in purple, and it's too bad they don't drape them in gasoline and set them on fire. But anything would be better than what's there. But the thing is, you have to realize that this abomination has infiltrated because the kings of the earth have allowed it to be through political systems. And Rome, by the way, is one of those adaptive. I have a master's degree in history. And Rome is the most adaptable religious system in history. I mean by that, she can take the shape or mold of any group she goes, any nation she goes into, she can fit. I mean, she'll change, she'll bend anything as long as they'll let her exist, because she knows eventually, once she gets her nose in the door, she's going to be in the tent before long. It's like a camel. You let them get their nose inside the tent, and next thing you know, they'll be all in the tent and you'll be outside. And that's the way the Roman Catholic system is. You can let her get her nose in the door, and she'll have the whole thing before it's over. They become drunk with the wine of the fornication, because it's strictly demon-powered. He carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. Now, one of the things you see, the reason the devil is pushing the woman so heavily is because it's against Scripture. Who did God put in charge of the garden? Adam or Eve? Who did he put in charge of the home? Adam or Eve? Who did he put in charge of the church? The nation? Now look around you and listen to what's happening. Everywhere, women are being pushed to take positions that are contrary to Scripture. Yeah, you're just one of those old, what do you call them? Macho. You think the men have it all. They've got a lot on them. A lot of lazy ones are going to get a lot more before it's over with. Friend, the devil has moved heaven and earth to change God's order. And Jesus Christ is the Son of God. So what happens? He comes forward and pushes an imitation of Jesus' mother. And always in every demonic system there is a superior female deity. By the way, an interesting sidelight on Rome. Rome was, at one time, it's built on 7 hills. And there was a time when Rome was dedicated to Jupiter, the king of the gods. By the way, Jupiter always was associated with thunder and lightning, balls of fire out of the sky. Does that sound familiar? And he was called the god of light. And they built a huge statue of Jupiter on one of the 7 hills in Rome and called it the Capitol. And guess what? In the Vatican, there's now a great big statue, that old statue of Jupiter standing there. Now they call it St. Peter. Jupiter. Strange, huh? And they call it St. Peter. It's nothing more but a statue of Jupiter. Even the Catholics will admit that. But they say, well, it's St. Peter now. Well, an image is an image is an image, isn't it? I mean, if you're going to violate God's law and build an image and worship an image contrary to His Word, you can just build any one you want, can't you? That's what they've done. Try the 2nd commandment on for size and see how it fits. It pinches. We got a booklet coming out soon called the 2nd commandment. It's going to make a lot of people mad, especially you ladies with your doodads. All right. Won't be the first time I've had a string of women mad at me. Notice this now. He carried me away in the spirit in the wilderness, John says, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. Now notice this. The beast is scarlet. Where's the woman? She's in the saddle. She's sitting on him. She's doing the directing. And this scarlet beast was full of names of blasphemy. It had 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, horns speak of power. Heads usually speak of kings. There were 7 kings, and 10 horns represents tremendous power concentrated in this amalgamation of nations. And notice the whore is sitting on all of them. By the way, she's getting in position to mount the saddle now. You watch in Europe what's happening. Because there's going to eventually be that 10-nation confederation come out of there. And guess who's going to be sitting in the saddle? All right, she said she's arrayed in purple and scarlet colors. Did you ever see a color video or a satellite broadcast from Rome when they're having one of their high holy days? What are the predominant colors? Purple and scarlet, huh? Just, I'm sure it doesn't mean anything, but just, it's kind of interesting. And notice this next thing, decked with gold and precious stone and pearls. Did you ever see one of these statues? Decked with gold, precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand. Elevating the cup. When that priest elevates that cup, there's a charge of black magic hits that thing. It charges it up, and everybody that gets hold of one of those little wafers dipped in that gets a large charge. And it's not good. It's transmitted through that. She holds in her a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Because you see, people are taught to worship that liquid in there because that's the blood of Jesus. You worship this. They're taught to worship that host because it is the body, the literal flesh of Jesus. You worship it. When the people come into the Catholic Church, they genuflect. They get back there and they come in, they bow. Because up in that little gold box are the leftover wafers from the last mass that they had. And that's the body, the flesh of Jesus is in there. And they're bowing to the flesh in that box. There are also bone relics of some saint in that altar too. Did you know that? There are nice spirits located in there too. There are bone relics in all the Catholic altars. And so this is full of abominations. By the way, this wafer thing goes back to Babylon also. When you get to the Bible mystery religion, you'll see the connection with all of this thing. Nothing is new. Everything is old. Old as Babylon. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, Mother of Harlots and Abominations of the Earth. The mother of harlots. By the way, I guess you are aware, aren't you, that the Pope wears on his mitre, his bonnet. First place, it's shaped like a fish. Did you notice that? Check it out. It tastes like a fish head, isn't it? Reminds me of Dagon, the fish god, who is Leviathan, king of the children of pride. Just probably an accident, but you know. It's also probably an accident that on his mitre, on his bonnet, he wears 666. Check it out. It's always been there. You say, you think he's the beast? I don't know. He'll do for a start. Getting closer. It's certainly using all the trappings of it, isn't it? Now I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints. What does that mean? She murdered the saints. She drinks their blood. She's a vampire. And the Roman Catholic system has murdered more Christians than any system on earth has ever. She murdered far more, hundreds of thousands more people than Rome ever did. Rome was a pagan society. But Rome did it on a systematic slaughter basis. For 1,500 years, she tried to wipe out every single Christian. And the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Now, don't think John was all filled, oh, what a wonderful gal. He said, I was just awestruck. I couldn't believe the horror of this monstrosity I saw. I was filled with awe and wonder. And the angel said to me, wherefore dost thou marvel? I'll tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carried her, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. He said, don't get all carried away with marvel and wonder. So I'll tell you what the mystery is. Now, a mystery in God's Word is something that's hidden for a time and then later will be revealed. And that's what the angel says, the mystery of the woman that's riding on that scarlet beast. The beast thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. How about that? Who's going to be wondering or filled with wonder at this beast? The ones who are not written in the Lamb's book of life. When they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. You see, this beast, this national system was, then it crashed, then it was restored. It was, it is not, now it's crawled out of the bottomless pit and it's back again. And this is the mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. It's interesting. San Francisco is where they cranked up the abomination called the United Nations, I believe. It has 7 hills. It sits on 7 hills. Moscow sits on 7 hills. Rome sits on 7 hills. But Rome seems to keep getting the prize because so much is centering on her. There are 7 kings. 5 are fallen. 1 is. The other is not yet come. When he cometh, he must continue for a short time. And the beast that was and is not, he's the 8th, and is of the 7, and goes into perdition. In other words, doom is coming, but they're going to serve a purpose. They're going to go through God's economy. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings. They've received no kingdom as yet. but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. They're going to come to the top, and for just a 1 hour, that is a short season, they're going to be having power. These have one mind, and they will give their power and strength unto the beast. In other words, they'll be completely controlled. Now, by the way, this word beast literally means living creature. You might say living critter. We don't know exactly what it is. And these shall make war with the Lamb. Now we know who the Lamb is, don't we? And the Lamb shall, what? Overcome them. Would you read that again? The Lamb shall overcome them. Notice the old gal was in the saddle. These are allied with the monsters of the earth. The demons are all united. And they come to make war with the Lamb, and he overcomes them. For he is Lord of lords, King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. Hello, called, chosen, and faithful. Well, called and chosen anyhow. Let's get on the faithful bandwagon. How about it? And he said unto me, the waters which you saw, where the horse sitteth, were peoples, multitudes, and nations, and tongues. See, she's sitting on the water. She's got everything. She's sprawled out everywhere. And that's literally what's happening. That blue army's marching everywhere. They're taking those statues everywhere. I never forget when I first moved to Chicago, our neighbors were in the Roman Catholic system. And all of a sudden there was a great dither. The infant of Prague was coming. I thought, what's that? Well, it turned out to be a little old doll dressed up like Jesus as a boy, wearing a big crown, bigger than it was. And they were going to get to have it in their house across the street for 2 days. And all the neighbors were rushing in to say rosaries and beads in front of it, and I didn't even get to go. Lord, have mercy. Excuse me while I throw up. It's amazing how people will be taken in by this stuff. It's pathetic. And then they think we're crazy because we throw out demons. My word. At least what we're doing produces the results that make people walk with Jesus. Well, we have to hurry because there are flashing lights all over the place at me here. The 10 horns of the beast, they shall hate the whore, will make her desolate and naked, shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. What's going to happen to that? They're going to turn on her and rip her to shreds. The very ones that she ruled and reigned over. For God shall put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the word of God be fulfilled. The woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Friends, she's going to be gone. But there's going to be a season in which she's going to be in the ascendancy. We need to be aware of this, and we need to arm ourselves with weapons of our warfare to fight against this wicked system. Tomorrow night I'm going to talk about Antichrist is coming, ready or not. Tonight I'm going to talk about Antichrist is coming, ready or not. You know, I used to live in a beautiful rose-colored cottage with a little white picket fence running around it. It was all safe and secure because I knew that just before this thing went to pot, the whole world went to pot, and the devil really took over, I knew with a certainty that Jesus was going to come and say, come up hither, and we're going to swoop up through a hole in the sky just before the Antichrist got a hold of us and chewed us up and spit us out, like he's done a lot of other Christians with the forces of Antichrist. And then I had a rude awakening after I got into deliverance, and God informed me that this is a fighting army, and there was nothing about a Dunkirk in their emergency evacuation at the last minute just in time to save the troops. There was going to be a fight right down to the wire. Whereas before I thought we were going to miss that awful tribulation period that's coming. Now, I am sure that we're going to go through at least part of it, if not all of it. So you better brace yourself and get ready because it's coming. The signs are everywhere. Australia and New Zealand are the pilot projects They're the countries they're trying everything out in, then it moves to Canada, and then we're just right next door. And so that's what they're working on right now, to get the things all ready. They must get our Constitution, they must get our guns. No country has ever been taken over by the communists till first they got the guns from the people. That's what all the anti-gun legislation is about. And I don't want to get off on that because that's not on my topic, but I can hardly stand it. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 so that I don't get too far afield here. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Paul is writing to the Thessalonians. He had mentioned in the first letter about Jesus coming with a shout with the voice of the archangel, trump of God, the dead in Christ should rise first. You're familiar with that. And that's coming. There will be a rapture. I just think that the time I used to believe is going to happen has moved forward considerably. And I don't look for it anytime soon, but if it comes soon, I'll be glad. And if you say, well, Worley, you were wrong, I'll rejoice with you better than you do, because I was wrong. This was something I would like to be wrong about, but I don't think so. I think we've got some rough times coming, and God is getting his people ready for the battle of the century. A man is here at this conference who's been traveling. He's been over Eastern Europe, down in the Caribbean, all over. He's been dropping our deliverance materials all over, and they've been tremendously well received. And he said everywhere people are coming to him and asking him about deliverance. Everywhere the believers are interested in deliverance. The preachers may not be, but the people are. They know there's something badly wrong. And so deliverance is the answer for the age, and our job is to learn it, practice it, experience it, and get it out to as many people as possible so that we can see the devil get a real slam banger before this thing's over with. Would you like to see the devil really get slugged? Amen. I mean, would you like to just see him just really get creamed one good time before we leave here? I would too. I like to see the demons get. I know it can be done because I've seen his emissaries whipped. I've seen them whine, cry, bawl, scream, beg, plead, everything. And that just thrilled me. I thought, this is better. I like this better than, oh Lord, help me, they're going to get me again. I like it better when I say, come out of there in Jesus' name. I bind you. Don't do that, Worley. Don't do that. I like that part better, don't you? Now, if you want to go on cringing in the trenches, fine, but I'd advise you to fix bayonets, learn how to use that bazooka you got, and start blowing up a few of the enemy. And come out of there with your authority armed. And not some of those little cream puffs at 20 paces. I mean some real hard down balooey. Blow them out of the water. You're not going to wave them out, blow them out, sing them out, praise them out. You're going to order them out in Jesus' name with the authority of Jesus Christ, backed up by his resurrection power. The power that raised Jesus from the dead stands ready to back the believers who will have the guts. Well, I should have said internal fortitude, shouldn't I? Intestinal fortitude, but I'll just say guts because you know what I'm talking about. And they should have this. But those who do, God will back you up. And you're going to have a rough time of it, but you'll have a glorious time. Which would you rather have? A soft, easy, rotten time and end up stinking up to high heaven? Or would you rather have a rough, glorious time all the way to heaven? Would you rather have something dull, boring? Well, we're going to church. It's boring. Well, let's see. The choir's going to sing the ninefold Amen. They might as well sing all shawl. There's nothing going to happen. I'd rather go where you don't know what's going to happen, but you know something's fixing to. I'd rather go where the people come expecting a blessing, needing a blessing. Some come all wiped out, some come all charged up, but everybody comes together expecting God to do something. That's what we need. Antichrist is coming. Paul writes to the Thessalonians because some had said, well, Jesus has already come. Paul wrote about it, he's already come. He said, no, don't get shaken up about that. Don't be shaken up, verse 2, in mind or be troubled by spirit, by word, nor letter from us, that the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there be a falling away first, that the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. There's going to be a falling away, a great falling away, which will reveal the man of sin, the son of perdition. This is the Antichrist. He's called the son of perdition. He opposeth and exalteth himself above all else that's called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Remember ye not, when I was with you, I told you these things. And now you know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity hath already worked. Now the mystery of iniquity was working 2,000 years ago when Paul wrote these, almost 2,000 years ago. He said it's already working, but only he who now letteth, this is an old English term for hinders, he who hinders will hinder until he be taken out of the way. Notice it's a he. Who do you suppose that would be? Now let me see. God's in heaven. Jesus is at his right hand. Now who on earth could be powerful enough to be here to hinder this revelation of the Son of Perdition? The Holy Spirit. Where is he? He's indwelling the believers who make up the body of Christ. And the Holy Spirit in the believers is hindering the revelation of this fellow. And this wicked shall be revealed only when God gets ready for him to be. He can run and raunch and faunch and everything else. That's why it's so nice to be on God's side, because if God decides to make him wait in the wings a while longer, he can do it. And the devil can come and say, hey, this is not the way the plan was. God said, I decided to change it. I had a bunch of people binding and loosing. No, the hush. Get back. Not yet. I want to see them beat you up some more. I want them to tear up your army a little bit more. I want them to shout the victory to my son a little while longer. Do you know our God can do that? Time's made for you and me. It's not made for him. And Satan can just fume and fuss all he wants to, but he'll have to revamp his plans if God decides to delay this thing. And that's why I believe God's raising up an army to tie his tail in knots if he's got one. All right. Now he said, the wicked one will be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth and destroy the brightness of his coming. Just as soon as he talks about him coming, said don't worry about him, because he's not going to last. He's not going to last. He'll come, he'll be tremendously powerful for a season, but he won't last, because God's going to tend to him. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders. Power, signs, lying wonders. Power, signs, lying wonders. Fatima, the Blue Army, the New Age movement, and all the spectacular supernatural channeling, talking with demons, demons speaking out, giving prophecies, wonders and signs, bending keys by looking at them. Lying signs and wonders. All of these things will come in a burst when this wicked one is fully revealed. Now, the fact that we see some of these things coming to pass right now means it's getting ready. His coming is nearing. Now, he says, he will work all these power, signs, and lying wonders with all deceivableness and unrighteousness in them that perish. In them that perish. You better get out of that crew. That's what's going to die. Because they receive not the love of the truth, they might be saved. And for this cause, God will send them a strong delusion that they will believe a lie. And I'll guarantee you one thing, these people caught in this ridiculous apostasy believe lies. They believe lies. We have a tape in the book room now. Excerpts from Kenneth Copeland's messages, direct quotes from him in his own voice. Heresy after heresy after heresy. Lying, because the man evidently doesn't know the scriptures very well. Did you know your dog can go to heaven? You probably didn't, because you just stuck to reading the Bible. Such things as that are on there. In his own words. I'm not making this up. These are clips from his own messages. You better read it and find out. Well, let's go over to the book of Revelation. Chapter 13. It's hard to cut up the book of Revelation because all of it's so good. Even if you don't understand it, even if your hair stands on end when you see the beast coming up out of the water and everything, it'll do you good. Help you beside just to read it. God said there's a blessing pronounced on those who read it. Those who hear it read. There's a curse pronounced on those who twist it and try to change it. This is a special, peculiar book in the Bible. Chapter 13, I stood on the sand of the sea. Now remember, in the Bible, the sea and the waters represent the nations of the world, usually. That's usually a picture. And this book is written in pictures. The key to the book of Revelation, by the way, you'll never understand Revelation, a lot of the figures and things in, until you read the keys, which are in Ezekiel and Daniel and other places in the Old Testament, especially in Ezekiel and Daniel. John wrote this book in code. He coded it so that the figures there mentioned, only those who knew the Old Testament scriptures would understand what they had to reference to. All right, he stands on the sands of the sea, John says, and he saw a beast. Now this beast should be a living creature. When we say beast, we think of, you know. This is a living creature. I don't know what it looked like. But it comes up out of the sea. It comes up out of the nations. It has 7 heads and 10 horns. 7 heads. The heads represent kings. The horns usually represent power. And 7, of course, God's number, plus 3 equals 10, which is complete. And this seems to indicate complete world power. And here he comes. On his head 10 crowns. Upon his heads the names of blasphemy. This is not from God, of course. The beast I saw was like unto a leopard. Sound like Daniel? That's right. His feet were like the feet of a bear. His mouth was the mouth of a lamb. And the dragon gave him his power, his seat, and his great authority. In other words, this world confederation comes along, and it is empowered, underwritten, and brought to be by Satan himself. Now watch the formation of the United States of Europe. That 10-nation confederacy will sooner or later emerge. It's in formation stage right now. It's mentioned specifically that in the end times it will happen. And once she gets in gear and gets set up just right, you see there were 70 weeks of prophecy in Daniel. 70 weeks of 7 years each. Each day represented a year. And you can take the history book and put it down on Daniel, and he tells from when the prophecy began and what king was there. You can lay it down and you can figure out year by year everything that happened up until you get to the end of the 70 weeks, and you get to week 63, or day 63, and it's over. You can't find the 63rd week. The last 7 years are not there. Nothing has happened. It just shuts off. It's like when history came to that place, God punched a stopwatch, and just suspended time. Now there's 7 years yet to go. And it's the period we call the tribulation period, the latter half of which is called the Great Tribulation. And when there's going to come a time when world events are shaped up by the permission and direction of Almighty God, who oversees everything, who's in charge of the whole shooting match. The devil can do nothing without his say-so, without his allowing it. And there's going to come a time when everything's all ready, and God's going to punch that stopwatch again, and we're going to go into that next 7-year period. Now this rising of this living creature out of the sea to put together this confederacy is part of it. We talked last night about the religious unification that's coming about through Fatima. And Fatima, the Blue Army, and unifying people under the woman goddess. And by the way, that's attracting Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, and Catholics by the millions, and then a lot of dumb non-Catholics. And if you're one of them, hello, dummy. Not hello, Dolly, but hello, dummy. You need to get your head in the Bible, because that harlot system is doomed to absolute destruction by God. God hates it. It's an abomination, and he is going to wipe it from the face of the earth before this thing's over. But for a season, the old harlot is going to come forward. And I want you to know that when I was a youngster growing up, every fundamental Bible church of any stripe that had any fundamental streak in it at all, universally branded the Roman Catholic system as the harlot church, the scarlet woman of Revelation. Only, listen to this, only since the charismatic renewal has the Catholic Church managed to squelch all of that. And now it's not nice to say anything about the brethren. Friends, if they're worshiping a little wafer god, If they're bowing down and praying to images, they're not my brothers and sisters. That's idolatry, that's heathenism, that's blasphemy, that's wickedness. If they're worshiping Semiramis and calling her the Blessed Lady, I've got news for you. That's an abomination. That they're off into a horrible error. And the best thing I can do for them is to brand the error they're in and pray for them to get loose. God loves them, but he does not love the abomination of that they're in. He calls it an abomination of abominations. And they're into it head over heels. But the Catholic system is very sly. He's managed to cut off all criticism, just about. Now, we talked about the religious thing rising up, and she will end up riding on this beast, this world power. But this national thing is coming to pass in our very lifetime, it looks like. With all this amalgamation going on, it's coming to pass, and it's coming to pass so fast till it could happen in a week or two. The whole thing could be stopped and that clock could click. Or it may last 50 years from now. I don't know. I'm just saying that if you've got ears to hear, you better listen. And you better keep short accounts with God. Because this thing could roll into being quicker than you think. This national monstrosity of the living creature is coming to pass, backed by the dragon, underwritten by the dragon, planned, programmed by the dragon. And there are people in our government that are programmed by the dragon, directed by the spirits in the heavenlies. Don't you forget it. A lot of them don't even know it. Some of them think they're doing this, that, and the other. These New Agers are all programmed by the devil. They think they're talking to God. They think they're talking to ascended masters. They're talking to ascended demons with whom they will descend one day if they don't get their hearts right with Jesus Christ. Now notice this. I saw one of the heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. Now let's go back a minute. There's been, I don't know whether I have time to even do this or not. There's been several world civilizations. And you remember Daniel talks about one that will break apart. You remember the Roman Empire came apart, finally. And then it was going to be reformed again. And here you have it, that deadly wound is healed. It's a miracle. And it's a miracle now. Things are coming to pass in the political scene that can't happen, but they're happening just as methodically as can be. And whatever this is, the deadly wound is healed, and the whole world wondered after the beast, the living creature that puts together this marvelous epitome of world power. And they worship the dragon, which gave power to the beast. They turn and worship Lucifer. This is what the New Age movement is moving toward. This is what witchcraft wants. This is what all the New Age movement is pointing toward, to worship Lucifer, to restore the sun god to his place. Every time you see a picture or a statue with a little halo on it or a sunburst behind it, that is a symbol of Lucifer. Always has been. Never has been Christian. Never. Matter of fact, we were ordered not to make pictures like that of Jesus. Jesus deliberately didn't leave any pictures. God made sure there were no pictures of him because he knew what fools people were. So the men manufacture them. And that's forbidden in the second commandment if you'll check it out. And people bow down, worship. And it's always been so that people will not obey God, but will obey and worship the dragon, obey him. They worship the dragon, which gives power to the beast. They worship the beast, the living creature, saying, who's like unto him? Who's able to make war with him? This is going to be a tremendously powerful political entity. Nobody can even fight with them. And there was given him a mouth, speaking great things and blasphemies. He's going to control the airways, TV, radio, newspapers, media. His great mouth will speak great blasphemies and great things. I think we're in the beginning of that already. There's a centralization of control that you wouldn't believe. A lot of the information we've been talking about you'd never get if you depended on Dan Rather, or Ted Koppel, Barbara Walters, Connie Chung, or none of these others, none of the magazines. All of them, even they're all owned and controlled. When you start on the tentacle and you chase it in and say, oh, this is the whole thing. You chase it in, here's Mama Octopus. And you get on any tentacle, you go back, it's all centralized into the power of the second heaven. Luciferian principalities and powers, dark secrets moving behind the scenes. Or he can speak great things, and power is given to him to continue for 42 months. Well, you know what 42 months are? 3.5 years. This great political entity is going to swing into great power for 3.5 years. And he's going to open his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. His tabernacle, where's that? But there's going to be one. You know where it's going to be located? Not in Salt Lake City. The Mormons missed it 1,000,000 miles. They say that Jesus is coming back to Salt Lake City. That's why they built the Mormon tabernacle over there. I got news for him. He wouldn't put his foot in that thing except to blow it apart. But there is coming a time. There's only one place that tabernacle, that temple, can be built. That's on the temple site in Jerusalem. Presently, the Mosque of Omar is sitting there. Do you know what would happen if the Jews who own that land now, and they'll never give it back, don't you kid yourself. The United States, everybody's tried to pressure them, let them have it back, let them. They said, you've got to be kidding. They've got the temple site, they've got all that land. They're not about to let the Arabs have it back. See, the Arabs, the Muslims, believe that, I think Abraham rose bodily to heaven from that place or something from that spot. And it's a sacred spot to them, so they built the Mosque of Omar there. And when you see the pictures of Jerusalem, you see that gold dome thing, that's the Mosque of Omar. It's sitting right on the temple site. And peculiarly enough, God's temple can only be in one geographical place in the whole world, and that's right on that spot. Now, as the Israeli government already has in warehouses, and has had for years, stockpiles of all the materials to reconstruct the temple. Did you know that? That's one of the first things they did when they became a nation. They started filling warehouses with the materials that would be necessary to build that temple. They planned to build that thing. They cannot do it without setting off a holy war. If they hit that Mosque of Omar, the whole Middle East would flame, and Muslim nations everywhere would attack. As far away as Indonesia, they'd send troops to fight the Israelis. So the Israelis are sitting tight, waiting. And by the way, I'm not saying the Israelis are all good. They got some Satan worshipers in the bunch. But mixed in among them, that's a place to watch, because that's where God's going to move, right over there. And Russia's getting ready for an attack. She will attack down through Turkey, and that's going to be one gosh awful fight too, because the Turks hate the Russians with a passion. But that's the way they're going to have to come to get to the Iranian and Iraqi oil and down to Israel. And they will strike eventually. It's coming. 42 months, this tremendous political entity will rise. Nobody will be able to make war for it. It will just be a tremendous sweep. Now they'll open their mouth and it'll open its mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints. Got to be some believers around there. He's making war with them. And to overcome them. How horrible. He's not only going to make war on the saints, he's going to overcome them. Power is given him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. Friend, this is a worldwide sweep. This is a worldwide sweep. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the earth. If any man hear an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and faith of the saints. There are going to be saints there. And for 3.5 years, it's going to be hell on earth for everybody who's a believer. You say, I'm getting out of here. Don't count on it. That's why God is setting up deliverance. That's why He's let loose binding and loosing, why He's resurrecting all kinds of teaching out of the Scriptures to get away from marshmallows and cream puffs and church socials and bowling teams and a lot of other foolishness, and get the church back down to cases. You and I are going to have to be able to know how to be led of the Holy Spirit. We're going to have to get messages direct from God. He will have to warn us directly about possible attacks, that we will move quickly. He'll have to even clue us in where believers are meeting so we can get together. Forsake not the assembling of ourselves. Years ago, over in Romania, I talked with some Romanian Christians. And in Romania, it was against the law to be a Christian. Against the law to be a Christian. And these believers would have meetings. And the way they got together, the Holy Spirit told people, and they came, and they'd tell them the address and everything, and then they had to come 2 or 3 at a time so as not to attract attention to a certain house. And they would have people, wall-to-wall people sleeping in. They'd come and sleep for 2 or 3 days there. They'd have meetings and sleep, and then they'd have to leave 2 or 3 at a time so as not to attract attention of the neighbors, that there was a crowd in that house. And the Holy Spirit brought them in, spoke to them and told them. You say, you think that can happen? It happened in Indonesia. The first trip we made to Indonesia, there were people coming out of the woodwork over there. We went thinking there were going to be 50 people. We got there, they had a 500-seat auditorium and said they were registering people. In the last 3 weeks, so many people had called in and started registering, and they'd had to cut off at 625 because they only had 500 seats. And people were still coming. 100 people flew 1,000 miles. Others flew 500 miles to get there. And they came and they couldn't all get in the building. And I didn't find out till the second or third trip to Indonesia that the Holy Spirit had told these people way off to call their friends in Jakarta and find out what was going on in Jakarta. And they said, the only special meeting I know about is some fellow named Win Worley is coming in from the States with deliverance meetings. That must be it, and here they came. That kind of excited me. Not because they came to my meeting, but because God's still able. Doesn't that bless you? That God can See, they didn't have any way to get in touch. They didn't have any way to know, but they did have a way to know. God is a great communicator with His people who are tuned in. And I want you to know they were tuned in because, the lid blew off when they got there. There were demons screaming all over that place. It was delightful. I was half dead, but I just was enjoying it so much I almost forgot how much I was hurting and how tired I was. It was so exciting. I got cussed out in 6, 7, 8, 10 languages. I don't know. And they called me everything but something nice, and they told me to go home. They knew why I was there. They didn't want me in Indonesia. Get out. We don't want you here. Go home, Worley. Now, I understood the English part. They gave me some liberal pasting in English. So I knew what they were saying. I asked the Indonesians what they were saying in Dutch, German, Japanese, Chinese, and various Indonesian dialects, and it was all basically the same. The Indonesians were laughing because they said they're all saying the same thing. No matter what language they're talking, they're all saying the same thing. And some people were speaking languages they didn't know, cussing me out. I never forget. And funny things were happening in the auditorium because all of that place. I remember there was one very nicely dressed lady sitting over here. If you ever saw a lady who was, she was all dressed up and very nice and very dignified. She was sitting right over there. And all of a sudden, she was sitting there just enjoying the message. And all of a sudden, next thing I know, she was on her feet screaming at me, I hate you, go home, Win Worley. Oh, and then she called me unmentionable names. And you thought, my word, out of that sweet little lady came all of that. But it was something inside her that was reacting violently to the fact that their domain had been invaded. And they kept saying, go home, we know why you're here. Now that you're here, we'll have to go. Yeah. You think I wasn't glad I came? I'll tell you what, people. If just one little team can show up and cause that much consternation in the demon world, think what it'll be if people will just dedicate themselves and give themselves to go forth and to be used of God. Just do what God tells you to do. That's what it takes. It'll smash the forces of wickedness every time. But we live in such a shallow, tin-panny, empty-headed generation. And I'm never going to get to the Antichrist. But we just live in such a dreadful society. So taken up with things. We've forgotten what the main object in life is, to serve Jesus. And how much better to go in and throw a kink into the devil's plans than to be able to do a lot of things that the world says are important. See what all you can accumulate everything the world's got in the way of success, the way of looks, the way of material possessions, and when you get through it'll be empty and hollow. But I'll tell you what, if you'll crash in and follow Jesus and let Him lead you, you'll make a mark that'll last for eternity, and people will rejoice and praise Jesus. They'll run up to you in heaven and hug your neck because you lived on the earth. Because what you did set the stage for them to get free. Or else you set the stage for somebody else to get free, who in turn set the stage for somebody else who set for somebody. And you know, this thing multiplies amazingly. And that's what'll keep you going when the going is rough, people. Jesus is the only thing. And we're going to have to be in tune with Jesus to make it work. You can't fake it. You can't fool around. You can't be grabbing for glory. The glory grabbers, they all go down the tube. Just flush them down the toilet. The sooner the better. Every once in a while we have somebody show up here. Oh, they're ready. I had a letter the other day, here a while back, applying to be my assistant. I never heard of this turkey. And the guy he mentioned that he had got his information under is a turncoat and a hypocrite and a put it in the back room man. And here he writes, and the pride just bubbled out all over him. Ha ha, I'm here. Ha ha, God told me. I know you'll already have received the message. I did. He did too. I wrote back and told him that if I needed to have an assistant on my staff, I had a dozen or more young men who were eminently qualified, that I knew nothing about him. I didn't know him from Adam's off ox. He might be very well intentioned. I said, get out and get trained and get your training and get your seasoning. I thought to myself, and learn not to go around applying for the job. That's one thing you don't do. In God's business, you wait on God, and when you wait on God, you have more than you intend to. I thought about having me some cards printed up, saying Win Worley, apostle, teacher, prophet, glorious international evangelist. I was afraid God would write Ichabod over me and pull my shingle down. I thought about it, but then I thought how idiotic it would be for anybody to do that. If somebody comes up and sticks a card that you said, prophet of the Lord, give it back to them like this, No Hollywood salute. I mean, they're so full of demons, they don't know, they're bound to squeak when they walk. And if they have to tell somebody they're a prophet or tell somebody they're an apostle, they're in bad trouble. You say, well, Paul told it he was an apostle. Yeah, but he was one. There's a whole lot of difference in that too. And he'd already proved the people he talked to were people he'd already been with. And all he did was review what he had done. These boys come up fresh with their cards fresh from the printer. That's their only recommendation. I've got a fresh batch of cards here. Wouldn't you like to have me? No. And they look at me kind of funny. I say, what part of no do you not understand? Lord of mercy. We have enough trouble trying to keep things moving in Deliverance Church without inviting some clogs like that. We need Drano and blast out and everything else to get it going. We got something like that stuck in the plumbing. Verse 11, we got to get on to this. We got to get the Antichrist up on the scene, or else I won't even have my message fixed. Verse 11. By the way, you know, I really don't get any sympathy around here among my loyal constituents. I was telling them I was having a real hard time with my message here the other day, trying to get it all straightened out and together. He turned and looked at me and said, well, just preach on Jesus wept and go from there. I looked at him and said, well, that's all you need from there. You just keep on going. I won't ask them any more help. Verse 11, I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. He had 2 horns like a lamb. This is another living creature. He's coming up out of where? The earth. Where did Jesus come from? Came from heaven, third heaven. This one comes up out of the earth. Guess where he's coming from? You got it. He had 2 horns like a lamb, but he spoke like a dragon. I was telling my people here a while back, we ought to have somebody write a little song. Looks like a lamb, speaks like a dragon. Looks like a lamb, speaks like a dragon. And hang it on around some of these birds, because they look like a lamb. But when they open their mouth, boy, it's the dragon talking. It's the devil himself. You know, it's the devil because he does not speak the truth. He lies. He promises you things the Bible doesn't promise. He twists the scripture to make you send your money to him. Now, if you're just bent on that kind of stuff, instead of sending it to Bob Tilton, why don't you just buy lottery tickets? You'd have a better chance of hitting. Now, I'm not advocating. Oh boy, now somebody's going to say, Worley says go out and buy lottery tickets. We may have to shave that one. I don't know. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you're just determined to act a fool, buy lottery tickets. Instead of that, you come near hitting. Then you can come bring the money here when you get it. We help you figure out how to spend it. No, seriously. You just don't need to be sending your money off to people like that. Did you ever get a request for money from us? And yet we haven't missed our light bill. I began to think we might have, the way the lights were blinking here before the service started. But we haven't missed a bill anywhere. This church has everything paid. Everything you see is paid for. Every living thing, every stick of furniture, everything you see is all paid for, and we've never taken a special offering for any of it. If you're a visitor, you saw how we take offerings. That's it. We don't stop and have the ushers stare at you if you didn't put enough. You know. We don't say, well, we didn't get enough that first time. We're going to have to take another offering. We're going to have to take another offering. You ever go to places like that? Mm-hmm. None of that here. The day we have to do that, that's the day we go out of business. But God will supply our needs, and he'll supply your needs too if you'll just trust him and believe in him. Well, this thing looks like a lamb, speaks like a dragon. He exercises all the power of the first beast, the first living creature. In other words, he has all this political power. He causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. Looks like a lamb, speaks like a dragon. He does great wonders. He makes fire come down from heaven. That's pretty spectacular, isn't it? He makes fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men, and deceives them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he has power to do in the sight of the beast. There's going to be a man coming who will be Satan incarnate, Satan in the flesh. Because Satan is a great copycat. He can't originate anything. He just copies what he sees God does, tries to do it himself. And he's going to imitate Jesus. Jesus was God come in the flesh. Therefore, Satan will have a man come. He'll be a man, and he'll be Satan incarnate, or Satan in the flesh. Now, some have felt like this one of these heads that was wounded to death and was restored was one that had been died and come back again. And I'll drop an interesting little thing on you without saying that it's valid, but just check it out. There's a theory that the Antichrist will be somebody who's already been here and who died. Now, there's not too many people that would qualify. As a matter of fact, there's only one I know of. One person shares his title, son of perdition, Judas. And the Bible says that he went to his own place. His own place. It also said that he was the only Jew. He was the only one of the tribe of Judah, which is the king's tribe, and the apostles. The only one from the tribe of Judah. And the Antichrist will deny the God of his fathers. And some have believed that Judas Iscariot, resurrected, would be the Antichrist. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's an interesting theory. And it is peculiar that a lot of the modern liberal theologians who've been busy dissecting the scripture and trying to tear it to pieces have been whitewashing Judas. I mean by that, they say he's the most, if you saw Jesus Christ Superstar, if you saw any of these abominable movies about supposedly on the life of Christ, they made it appear that Judas was the smart one. Jesus was the dummy. Judas was the misunderstood one. He was trying to force Jesus to be the king. And that's all he wanted. He was really a nice guy. And he was so misunderstood. All the other disciples were so mean to him. And that's why he committed suicide. La-ti-da. And so some think that he may come back. And it's a funny thing because the liberal theologians are saying that he was the most misunderstood man in history. He was really a hero and the others were heels. Isn't that strange? Modern theology. The Bible has nothing to say about that. He calls him the son of perdition. Same title as the Antichrist. Isn't that unusual? At any rate, he's going to come back. Antichrist is going to rise. When he does, whether it's Judas or whether it's somebody else, he's going to rise. Now, of course, you can read any number of books to tell you who it is. It's Kissinger. I've lived long enough to know that it was Franklin Roosevelt. It was Stalin. It was Hitler. It was, right. I've heard a lot of them. They had books out proving it. This is the Antichrist. He's come on the earth. So don't you worry about it. When he shows up, there won't be any doubt about who he is. I'd say Mr. Kissinger is a pretty good candidate. He's Jewish, and he certainly denied the God of his fathers. He's certainly a heathen. And but who knows? But when he does take power, everybody will know it. Everybody will know it. He could come out of the Muslim world even. And he does great wonders. Makes fire come out of heaven, earth side of man, and deceives all that dwell on not all of them, deceives them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles, which he had power to do. You see, a lot of people are hollering miracle, 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 and you better watch out because you can get deceived by those things. And the devil is cranking up the miracle factory right now. He's running it right now. There have been miracles going on over at Lourdes. There have been miracles at Fatima. There have been miracles over at Garabandal. There have been miracles everywhere these false, over Yugoslavia, where the apparition has appeared. There have been miracles up at Bayside, I think, New York, where this woman is getting all this good stuff from Our Lady. And all of these things, all over the world, these apparitions are appearing, preparing the way for the final grand slam of the devil. And you better watch out. Get yourself tuned up to the Word of God so that the minute the false comes up, there'll be a little warning bell go ding. Watch it, watch it, watch it, watch it. Caution. Now, notice what the beast did. He says to them on dwelling on earth, they should make an image to the beast, which had a wound by the sword and did live. You want to make an image to remember this one that had a wound by the sword and did live. Does that remind you of the Sacred Heart pierced by the sword and the thorns? All of this is all wrapped together. It's all wrapped up in one nasty, filthy abomination. And it's coming. Now, he has power to give life unto the image of the beast. And that image of the beast should both speak and cause as many who would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. They build this image, and I want you to know this one's a supercharged one. It talks. I mean, that'd be pretty impressive. Build a big image of this world ruler and then have this thing sit up and talk. And it gives, you know what the orders are? Kill all those that don't believe. That sounds kind of like the Roman system too. I was just checking today. They murdered 50 million Christians, the Roman Catholic system did, in the dark ages of 1500 years when they were in the ascendancy. They murdered 50 million people. And that was when there weren't that many people on the earth like there are now. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And here's wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast. It's the number of man, and his number is 666. 666. You know, somebody pointed out some time ago, did you ever do like this? Did you ever notice what that is? That's 3 sixes. Huh? And you know where it came from? Check it out, the Hindu gods. I'll tell you, this thing is so embedded. The devil has got his mark on everything practically. You say, well, you think somebody go to hell if they did that? I doubt it. You go to hell because you don't trust Jesus. But you sure could open the way for demonic work in your life and in your family by fooling around with this stuff. I think you need to become aware of all the demonic and get the trash out of your life as fast as possible. Trash all this stuff. Get it out. Start asking God to show you how to clean house, how to get your house clean, how to get your mind clean. I'll tell you, the devil is doing a job, and he's working so fast now. Every year that we've been in deliverance, it seems the pace of the devil has stepped up. But I'll tell you this, where sin does abound, there does grace much more abound. That's what I want to leave you with. This coming world ruler, this coming tremendous power. By the way, when he first comes to power, over in Daniel, it talks about he will be the best friend the Jews ever had. He will make a treaty with them. And I'll tell you, friends, watch out for treaties with Israel. When that treaty's made, boy, we're in trouble. Because that's part of the end times thing that's coming. They'll make a treaty with Israel to protect her against her enemies. Sounds good, doesn't it? And for a while, we'll seem to be the greatest friend that Israel has ever had. But that will only give time to consolidate the rest of the world under a single ruler. When that's done, that's when the move goes, and that's when the mask comes off, and he puts the image in the temple. And when that happens, that's when the Jews go into wild rebellion again. It's coming, people. All these unusual and peculiar things are coming. And they're all scrambled up, and it's hard to sort them out sometimes. But they're all coming to pass. And you and I, knowing that they're coming, we don't have to know all the ins and outs and exact details of when everything. We don't have to pinpoint and say, well, this year and this day it's going to happen. We just have to know it's coming. Therefore, what do? Get into the Word. Get into prayer. Get your house cleaned up yourself. Get your family cleaned up. Arm yourself with the tools of warfare. Learn about real deliverance and real spiritual warfare. So much called spiritual warfare today is old fluffy duff. It's been around for years. I've had a lot of stuff. You know, people are always sending me help. They're always trying to help me. And that's great. Some of them do send some help. But a lot of people, they think I'm so far off into error, you know, they've got to help me out. Help Worley get out of this awful heresy he's in. And they take it on themselves to send me all kinds of goodies. And I use it as ammunition a lot of times. And makes good cannon fodder sometimes. But sometimes they send me stuff that they're telling me all about these wonderful new avenues of spiritual warfare. I skim through it and look at it and I think, my Lord, I read about that 40 years ago. It didn't work back then. It's not working now. Somebody's resurrected it, put a new name on it, put their name at the head of their association, and now they're pumping it out by the thousands of copies of nice, beautiful, colored literature, and people are sucking it up saying, boy, this has to be good. Look here how nice and brilliant the brochures are, and how much money it takes to get it. It's bound to be good. Bound to be good. Not necessarily. Could be pure garbage. One thing about it, during the winter, I have no problem with keeping my fireplace going. I have lots and lots of stuff to go in there. And it's nice, it serves some useful purpose. It's good to have some of this stuff to serve a useful purpose. Some of it, that's about the only use I can think of it that do it any good. Antichrist is coming, but Jesus is already here in us. And when he comes, we'll see his glory. But in the meanwhile, we're his troops. When the enemy comes in like a flood, what will happen? The Lord will raise up a standard against him. What is that standard? His people. You want to be part of his standard? I do too. Let's give ourselves to study, to prayer, to dedication. Throw away with lesser things and ask God to show us our place. You may not go across the seas. You may not even go past your prayer closet. But you can do wonders from there even, if that's what God wants you to do. There's a job for you where you are. Don't everybody go home, sell out, and come to Bible school or something. That's the biggest foolishness that could happen. Look for a place where you are. God needs outposts everywhere. In your neighborhood, in your house, in your office, in your mill, wherever you are. That's where God needs the workers. He doesn't need them all conglomerated in one place. If he gets them all in one place, the devil all he has to do is drop one bomb on the whole bunch and he's wiped them out. That's why we have short workshops. We want you to scatter and get away from here before the devil decides to bomb us. No, seriously, learn what you can and get yourself on the line for the Lord. Let's stand and sing, I love you, Lord Jesus, and really mean it from your heart, will you? I love you, Lord Jesus. I praise you, Lord Jesus. I worship you, Jesus, my God and only King, with all my heart, Jesus, with all my soul, with all my mind, I love you, Lord. And Father in heaven, let this be the prayer of our hearts, that we will love you with all our hearts, and let the Lord Jesus Christ rule and reign in each of the hearts here. Show us each man, woman, boy, girl, young person, what their place is in this battle that's raging already and will grow fiercer. And let us all find our place in yieldedness and trust with you. Bless us, Lord. Give us a good night's rest. Bring us back tomorrow for a time of real refreshing as the messages go forth. Bless everyone who takes part. And make this to be a rich experience for everyone who's come. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.